Okay, our next speaker is Felix Goodman from Divest LA. He's going to talk about getting corrupt money out of banks and into public banks. Thank you.
Wow, I am honored to share this stage with this group of people. Incredible. Public banking is an idea whose time has come, and everybody here today is an innovator and forward-thinking visionary, promoting a radical idea that the circulatory system of the economy should be in public rather than private hands, serving, to use the words of Rousseau, the general will, what's best for everyone, instead of the particular will, what's best for just a faction of people at the expense of everyone else, the way private banking works today. So I'm honored to share the stage here with so many great thinkers and activists fighting for this public banking solution. Banking is at the heart of the entire economy. It determines where the money flows, for better or for worse. And with such a vital public service in the hands of an oligarchic and extractive financial elite, pernicious abuse of this power is the norm. The public bank solution has the potential to fundamentally transform the nature of the economy and even the very notion of economics itself, to make it once and for all in the service for and by the people instead of for and by the financial elites. Make no mistake, what we're advocating for here today is nothing short of a revolution. Imagine if this idea caught fire and went viral and it spread to all 50 states. Let no one here allow ourselves to sell ourselves short. We have to strive for nothing less than a radical system overhaul that definitively and decisively transfers the levers of control from oligarchs to the people. From Wall Street to Main Street, simply too much is at stake for the human race in too little a time frame to settle for anything less. So what I'm here to contribute today is an expansion on the notion of a social economy through public banking to introduce some new ideas into the discussion. The public bank revolution can sweep the nation, state by state. But there's a key element to consider for socially and environmentally responsible economics, the notion of scale. All the incredible benefits of a state bank have been very eloquently discussed here today, but I'd like to open your mind to an even smaller economic unit and civic unit than the state. One might even say the most fundamental economic and civic unit of them all, the city. What if, in addition to a California state bank and public banks in other states, we also saw the proliferation of municipal public banks sweep the nation? Banks owned and operated for and by local communities. But first, let me tell you a story of how I came here today to advocate for this solution. It begins in November of 2015. Something seemingly minor, but with profound implications happened. Seattle voted in a socialist city council member, Kashama Sawant. She ran on progressive issues like $15 an hour minimum wage and affordable housing. Now, when all too many politicians, even at the local level, are status quo preserving establishment careerists, as many activists right here, I'm sure, frustratingly had to contend with firsthand, the entrance of a progressive visionary into the corridors of legislative power marked a profound shift. Councilmember Sawant, with her out-of-the-box visionary way of thinking, did something radical. She proposed the divestment of the city of Seattle from Wells Fargo due to their investment in DAPL and their history of predatory lending and fraud. City money is public money. And that means that the people themselves, we all here, are complicit in the crimes of the banks by virtue of the fact that we support the banks with our tax dollars. Think about that. The implications of leveraging city power to legislate the mass divestment from unethical financial institutions are huge. And this is only the beginning, because that's when our journey here at the Divest LA began. We started off wanting to emulate Seattle, to emulate their motion to divest from Wells Fargo as an act of solidarity with Standing Rock, and to encourage higher ethics standards for the placement of public deposits. But while researching the possible alternatives and the challenges that came up with implementing them, the penny finally dropped. I had already been a huge fan of Ellen Brown's work on the idea of public banking, but I never had actually really considered in depth the idea of a public bank on a scale as small as a city, the concept of the Public Bank of Los Angeles, for example, just really on a national or state level. The municipal bank solution naturally evolved out of the divestment movement, because when dealing with divesting, the natural question becomes, well, where are you moving the money to? And sure, moving money from an extremely unethical, big, private Wall Street bank to a somewhat less unethical, big, private Wall Street bank is technically an improvement. But isn't local self-determination the best of all possible worlds? Think about all the incredible benefits of public banking you've heard here today applied on a local, city-wide level. As it stands today, Los Angeles and countless other cities have their financial services provided by immoral, privately owned banks guilty of countless crimes against the people. Instead, cities can develop public banks that are fine-tuned to the needs of the local communities, providing not only more ethical economic frameworks, but as we've heard here today, much more effective ones as well. Think about the domino effect that began with a single progressive city council member in a single city that coincided with a monumental new popular movement in support of Standing Rock. If we learn from this trend, what can we look towards going forward? Imagine the possibilities. What began as a movement centered on simply divesting from a bank for a set of crimes morphs into a nationwide revolution. Imagine progressives, socialists, and Greens are voted into more and more city councils across the nation. News reports come out one after the other. Los Angeles charters a public bank. Santa Fe Public Bank opens. People's Bank of Pittsburgh founded. San Francisco creates a municipal bank, and so on, and so on, and so on, the dominoes fall. And while the cities transform one by one, so do the states, and the movement spreads virally. For as long as public banking has been in effect, for as long as modern banking has been in effect, private banking's extractive nature has leached untold wealth from the economy into the hands of the vampire squid money manipulators. Isn't that tragic? But in a stroke, literally hundreds of billions of dollars can start to funnel from Wall Street back into local communities through this mechanism. The charters of the various banks will be different in some cases and very similar in others. They'll each be tailored to the unique individual needs of each community, but should all have an environmental and socially responsible charter mandate in their makeup. With so many public banks, you can see not only the customization of local needs, but competition. That's the argument apologists of the other side give for the private sector. But by providing so many independent financial institutions in the public sector, we can see competition and innovation minus the greed and the hubris. And we can see altruistic economic policies implemented cost effectively.
It also means that each bank operating autonomously in the interests of its local community can operate in the system as laboratories. Maybe, for example, a municipal bank of one city boldly implements an innovative policy with great results, and other cities are inspired to follow suit. This will fast-track the evolution of the system as a whole, as it strives to perfect itself. If this scenario happens, it will mark one of the, if not the, most radical economic shifts in this nation's history. Make no mistake, the public banking movement is not a tweak to our current system. It is quite literally a radical system evolution. Revolution is not only about pitchforks. A proper revolution is about the effective implementation of radical and enlightened ideas. It's not enough to spew anger at bankers. It's not enough to regulate them. And it's not enough to jail them. Although, that'd be a great start, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Regulation and reformist tweaks play into the game on the status quo's terms. Let's not come up with new conclusions to the same old premises. It's time to change the premises themselves. By building this movement from the bottom up, we follow the advice of famed luminary R. Buckminster Fuller, when he taught us that we will change the old system by building a new one. I truly believe in this moment in history where ecosystem destruction and wealth inequality are reaching fever pitch levels, that we are on the cusp of nothing less than a fundamental systemic overhaul of the economic model. Historians will probably see this coming shift as a transitionary period on par with the industrial or maybe even Neolithic revolutions. Because the important thing to realize about this is that this is not about the financial sector in a vacuum. It's about using the levers of public capital paired with enlightened progressive vision to transform everything about our economy from the inside out. Well, either we have a shift of that magnitude, or we end up in a much more dystopian situation. So let's not kid ourselves of the magnitude of this task at hand. One of my major influences is E.F. Schumacher's economic manifesto, Small is Beautiful, which introduced me to the idea of Buddhist economics, the importance of localism, people and planet-centered economies, and small-scale markets harnessed to the social good. Some common well-known ideas today influenced by Schumacher are fair trade products and local food, for example. As I see it, E.F. Schumacher plus Ellen Brown equals the system of economics that's going to save this world. At the end of the day, public banking at all scales needs to be at the center of a whole new way of conducting capitalism. It's about being the center of a new economy that could never lead to the levels of destruction that the old economy has given us. In this system, we, the people, are the shareholders, and bankers are public servants. Think about this, to put it into perspective. What do you think a 5-star general in the U.S. Army makes? Under $250,000 a year. Now, this job is deemed extremely important to the nation, and it carries with it a high degree of prestige and a comfortable salary. But it is first and foremost a career of duty and public service, fundamentally. Can you imagine if generals made tens of millions of dollars a year? How preposterous would that be? This is how we need to start thinking about banks. Because banks provide such a vital public service, and the directors of public banks should be looked at as public servants of the community, rewarded appropriately, but not excessively. Under this system, the formerly infinite power of financial elites will be subordinated to the public good. Local small-scale banks put the people and the community in charge of capitalism, determining allocation of funds based on social and environmental principles, making the people and the planet beneficiaries of the economy. Today, we are facing the domination of huge, monolithic, multinational corporations, environmental destruction, lack of self-determination, large-scale banking, and a one-size-fits-all culture, and economics run in the interests of economic elites rather than the common good. The solution is localism, small-scale economics, local self-determination, new, bold ideas, and economics that place people and planet first. In the age of Trump, where DC is more and more being seen as an inaccessible swamp of corruption, we're beginning to see a shift towards city and state civics. By going small, down even to the scale of the city, we have incredible advantages. City halls are right where people live. Council members are much more accessible than senators and presidents. City governments are most closely reflect the cultures and the unique needs of the community. Passing legislation at City Hall is a less daunting task than passing it in the Senate. And yet, with a single stroke of a mayor's pen, billions of dollars can be moved, and fundamental shifts can be made, especially in a large cosmopolitan city like Los Angeles. The city is the fundamental civic unit. The beginning of civilization itself was at the city-state of Sumer, the first city. The city is the location where people gather, see their neighbors, work, go to school, conduct all manners of life. It is the basic unit of an advanced community. And all civic units, beyond cities themselves, are nothing more than a network of interconnected cities and surrounding countryside. Two of the most inspired cultures in human history are the classical Greek Golden Age and the Italian Renaissance. These cultures were buzzing with advances in so many areas, and they provided their citizens with a highly localized consciousness and identity. The Greek polis was the birthplace of democracy, which entitled citizens to gather in the town square and discuss policies that they could vote on. In this manner, civic engagement was built into the culture. Perhaps we're planting the seeds today for a future renaissance, one in which people eat more local food, people's local cultures thrive and grow in unique ways. The economy circulates money in a way that benefits the community by investing in a green energy New Deal, affordable housing. And we live in a system where no matter what familial background a child is born into, they will be part of a vibrant culture and economy that ensures that a great education is available and opportunities are there to achieve self-actualization. Imagine this world with me, and let's build it. I urge you all here, run for city council, join the movement, push your city and your state to develop a public bank, and do all the other hard, radical things, fit for only true leaders and champions of the people. With your help, we'll make it happen. Thank you.
Okay, our last panel is going to talk about what the grassroots can do now. It's time for us to mobilize. We have Carlos Marroquin from the Brigade. We have Michelle Marnos from California for Progress. We have Trinity Tran of Divest. Divest LA. And we have Giselle Mata, Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment, ACCE. And we will have, this will be a 10-minute discussion, and then if we have time, we'd like to do a 10-minute Q&A for all our panelists, and then we're going to need to close up.
You have to say 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. There it is.
There you go. Testing. You gotta speak up a little. Your hello was really
Yours done? Yeah. All right. This is, I would think, a very important part of what we're trying to do here with kicking off a campaign that in no doubt is going to be a hard campaign, and it's going to be a campaign that is going to take a lot of efforts. It's going to need unity of groups, organizations, unions, churches, anybody that would get on board. It's a huge effort that we are mounting here. As our guest has said it, we're talking about coming against the biggest system that has controlled all of us for a long, long time. And we're introducing something that can change, that's going to start with us and has to end up with us. The economy starts with us, but it has gone only one way, to them. We're going to bring it home. We're going to start it with us and bring it back to us. That's what public banking is all about. Making sure that it stays home. And with that, I see as an activist and as an organizer, I think that we're going to have challenges. Because the state of California is big. And with that, we have, I believe, 15 counties in California? Correct? And we have a lot of territory to cover. So we're going to need all hands on board. And right here, the panel, we have a lot of experience, and this is what's going to, I believe, take this over to the other side. We have good people that know their stuff, that know banking, that have experience in public banking and all these other issues, legislatures that have worked on at the state level. We have all that, and we have been missing the grassroots. Well, the grassroots is here, and we're saying it's time to take it home. So I'd like to ask a few questions. First, I want to start with Giselle. And I know that I have worked with her in the past. And tell us a little bit about how you see this going. What is going to need to get this, to really get the ball moving?
Hi, I'm Giselle. I'm the organizer with the community group called ACE, formerly ACORN. ACE stands for the Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment, and we are a neighborhood organization that mobilizes neighborhoods, low-income neighborhoods, to speak truth to power when it comes to issues like home defense with the wrongful foreclosures, tenants' rights when it comes to corporate landlords, and now we're partnering with Committee for Better Banks. Committee for Better Banks is a coalition of unions, nonprofits, consumers, and current and former bank workers that have been impacted by predatory sales goals. So what I think, in answer to Carlos's questions, what I think in order to get this done is mobilization along the same lines, neighborhood by neighborhood, door knocking, canvassing, petitions. It's an above all approach when we are talking about organizing to get a public banking system, which I think can fix a lot of those issues that are being addressed today. Affordable housing, we all know it's tied to the banks. understanding foreclosures, all types of banks. So until we come together in coalition groups to work on tackling this issue of public banking, I don't see us being successful. So this is what it takes. It's a coalition of people that are already moving the agenda. Bernie Sanders' Brigade is an awesome revolution LA. Everybody who's worked on the Bernie Sanders campaign proved to us that we could organize folks in a way that allows us to gain more power. Obviously, we know that there was a systematic undermining of Bernie Sanders, so we learned. And now we continue to go back to the grassroots for the answers, because it's the grassroots that are going to change the agenda. So, I mean, I could talk a little bit about what it's like to organize bank workers, because that's the one thing that we found to be most effective, is getting the inside scoop from bank workers. And Committee for Better Banks started with a letter or a report, December of 2013, that basically exposed that wages are so low for frontline bank workers, tellers, and personal bankers, that 1/3 of the tellers were on public assistance. And then you had, and we started to make connections with the sales goals, because the sales goals were actually where the banks incentivized those predatory products for the worker, basically saying you're making peanuts, but we'll slide in a little bit of jelly if you push this predatory product. So once we understood that, we knew that we had to talk to those workers in a way that allowed them to lift their voices about what's really going on within the banks. And behind that, 2014, we started a petition to end unreasonable sales goals within the banks. And then after that, we started doing direct actions with bank workers lifting their voices in spaces like shareholder meetings, taking over and occupying banks. We fall back on the Occupy movement in every way possible because direct action works. We found that to be true in the home foreclosure crisis. That for those homeowners that stood up and resisted and occupied their home, some of those homes were saved. It comes through petitioning your legislator. It comes through speaking truth to power when it comes to those representatives in your community, whether it's at a council meeting or whether it's at City Hall or Senate or Congress. We have to continue to have those conversations, because they act like they don't know what's going on. And once you inform them, the wheels start turning and things start happening. And in September 2016, we had the largest settlement come down and impose on a bank for fraud, and that was Wells Fargo. And that was because we put 7 bank workers, from branch manager to tellers to personal bankers, on the phone with the media and gave those transcripts to Elizabeth Warren and Keith Ellison. And those transcripts told of the abuses, the hostile environment around sales goals. And I'll tell you right now, every one of those 5,200 workers that was terminated by Wells Fargo, guess what? They were terminated because they wouldn't commit fraud. And we talked to them. We know that they were reporting to the ethics line, and the ethics line would call the manager and say, this person's a problem, they're not part of the system, weed them out. Late 2 minutes from a break, take time off for your kid. These are the things that they were being terminated for, because they wouldn't defraud the system, because they couldn't meet their sales goals. Well, when you have 7 years or more of fraudulent activity, you got to make up for more fraudulent activity, because you're going against last year's figures. So if every year you've got fraudulent activity on the books, guess what? You got to create more fraud in order to cover those figures from last year. How profitable has Wells Fargo been in the last 7 years? Right? We all know this. So it's way more than 3 million accounts. It's way more than that. But we also have to consider the fact that our legislators, as we've talked about, are under the gun. They will not be re-elected if, in fact, they are opposing the banks. So, again, it goes back to grassroots. We started small by issuing some reports, analysis, some data, And that data came back that told us what all we needed to know about what these sales goals are designed to do, which is to undermine communities of color's wealth, to extract wealth from any means necessary, whether it's mortgage wrongful foreclosures, or whether it's predatory lending, or bank fees, or overdraft charges, or multiple accounts. It's all designed to move on to the next fraud. And right now they've moved on to car loans as their next fraud, adding multiple insurance policies onto homes and car loans. So it's definitely overdue for a public banking system, and the policy that we're moving in City Hall right now has to do with the next bank that takes the accounts for the city. It's a $40 million account. Nobody wants it. Guess why? Because it comes with regulation. It comes with whistleblower protection. It comes with accountability to the next bank not having sales goals if they want to hold the accounts. It comes with a ability to sever that contract if, in fact, it's found that that bank is issuing predatory loans. So we've called and we've talked to every federally funded bank. Nobody cares to do that. So we have to have a public banking system. Thank you.
So, in this mass movement of people that we are going to hope to do, we're moving into phase 1 of this campaign, which is education. That's our goal right now. We've got to educate the public, because a lot of people don't know what public banking is, have no idea how it works, don't know the benefits that it can bring to California. So we have a big job to do as grassroots. And by the way, I would like to also acknowledge today we have Eastside Greens with us. We also have Mark from Raleigh, LA with us, representing, but also are going to be coming on board. And having said that, there's going to be more groups, organizations, unions that we're going to be talking and bring them on board so that we can roll this thing forward. So we have Michelle Manos. She has been working with California for Progress. Tell us, what do you think needs to happen right now?
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I just want to give a shout out to Carlos and Bernie Sanders Brigade for putting this together. It's absolutely incredible and inspiring. And we're happy to be part of this coalition. The groups that you see represented on this panel today are, were started by small groups of people who decided to come together and start meeting about an issue or a set of issues that's important to them. And that's really what it takes. The grassroots movement in Los Angeles since the Bernie Sanders primary season has remained strong. However, we have splintered off into various different directions. That's okay, we're all working on really important issues. But this is an issue that can help solve all of those problems. Because this issue of public banking, these banks are infiltrating all the areas of our social welfare and our society that we hold so dear. And they're putting a profit motive onto everything. And it's crucial that we understand what profit does. Profit will corrupt these social institutions that we hold so dear. So when we talk about what the point of public banking is, it's so that the workers and the people can own the institution, which is housing their capital, their money. We are stuck under a system that forces us to commodify our labor, and the system teaches us that we are only worth what we can perform for some entity greater than ourselves. That is not true. You are worth more than your labor. You are worth something to your family, to your community. Your activism is worth something. Your love is worth something. And these banks are the ones that are trickling down into every aspect of our society. There's many things that are happening around the community. For instance, tomorrow at Bernie's Coffee Shop, there's going to be a workshop for worker-owned enterprises. So you can come out and support that. There's also a rally happening in Sacramento called Oil Money Out, where we're demanding that we get fossil fuel money out of our politics in California. This is another crucial thing to be doing. Fossil fuel money is one of those that's permeating every aspect of our society. So what it takes for grassroots to get involved is to have those meetings, develop these actions. If you, Divest LA is doing amazing work occupying at City Hall and pushing for divestment of Wells Fargo, of Los Angeles from Wells Fargo. There's been successes, as we heard from Phoenix, around the country. And what it takes is mobilization. So when we talk about mobilization, it means many things. Not everyone can show up to something like this. Not everyone can show up during the week to the city council meetings. So what can you do? You can be having these meetings in your home. You can be helping us by promoting on social media. I'm not one of those people that thinks that social media activism is slacktivism. I believe wholeheartedly that it takes all of us. Because if people can't be out in the streets and they can't be at the meetings, then they can share to their networks. And guess what? People are involved. People want to be on social media finding out what's happening. That's why we allow the live streamers in the front row, and we ask the grassroots media to participate at the same level as the regular media. Because we need to be informing each other. And when you watch a live stream instead of watching what's happening on CNN, guess what? You're not getting that CNN filter. You're getting what's actually happening. Because we're not cutting and splicing it for you. We're wanting you to make your own decision. And you should build your own following. So that when you're posting crucial information on social media, it's just not going into the abyss, but it's part of a greater structure. So when you have that meeting in your living room, and you have 4 of you guys talking, and maybe next time it's 6, and then reach out to an organization, Bernie Sanders Brigade, California for Progress, any of the organizations you see listed here or the ones that you're following on social media, they are meeting and they're asking for your support. So it's about getting out in whatever way is comfortable for you, and it's about having these conversations with other people. Revolution doesn't have to mean, taking to the streets, although that is what it is too. But it's also about having the conversations with people who don't necessarily know. You may have come to this meeting today because you didn't know what public banking means or what it can do for the community. Now it's your responsibility to go back out and talk to the other people who couldn't be here. Write an op-ed, we'll host it, we'll share it. This is a community, and we have to act like it, and we have to support each other. So when Divest LA is having their occupations of City Hall, be there, and if you can't be there, share it out.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
There you go. Hi everyone, I'm Trinity with Divest LA. We've been, for the past 3 months, we have been co-occupying City Hall to try to urge council members to divest at least $8 billion from Wells Fargo, from the city's depositories. Our movement started only a few months ago, inspired by what happened in Seattle, as Phoenix mentioned. What Kashana Sawant did really just, set a spark that inspired all of these pockets of resistance rising all across the country in every major city. And so, we're very, very proud and inspired to be part of this national uprising. So we created Divest LA as not only a way to restructure the financial industry here in Los Angeles. It's become something so much larger with these co-occupations. It's now kind of evolved to the idea of revolution, where when you looked at the Occupy movement, it was about it was a movement against banking, against the 1%. It introduced the narrative of 1 versus 99%, but it was about noise making without much of an aim, and so there wasn't a solution. So what we have been doing is kind of grabbing people and introducing them into the, giving them an understanding of how the political system works at the local level, introducing people to municipalities and legislation and policy, because protesters in the past have traditionally stood on the periphery of politics because it's very cold, it's very detached, and we even have organizers who have told us, when I first started going to City Hall, I didn't know if I felt like I didn't belong here, or it was, it's just so official and so detached, and it's so important for people to understand that, in order to make these large, monumental, revolutionary changes, we have to be able to engage policymakers, not only engage them, but educate and inspire them. So as we've been going around to the City Hall Council meetings, sitting down with legislative directors, talking about divestment, one of the biggest practical questions they've asked is, where do we move the money? So with a financial portfolio the size of Los Angeles, we're faced with a very small number of banks, ethical banks, and banks are both socially and environmentally responsible. So, when you look at the small handful of banks that bid on the City of Los Angeles contracts, these banks are all complicit in crimes against humanity and the earth, and funding of fossil fuel pipelines, and private prisons and wars. And so in addition to asking for the city to divest, we're also asking them to reinvest, divest from their financial portfolio, their investments, to move that into social goods and renewables, as well as create a feasibility study for the creation of a municipal public bank similar to what San Francisco just recently passed with their resolution, their task force that is now going to, their national task force that is now going to look into ways to pave the path towards a municipal bank in San Francisco. So it's very important that, not only we educate each other. Most people are against big banks. Most people understand the destruction that these big banks have caused, and they do understand that profit belongs in the community. But expanding that conversation so that they understand that this big banks are for the 99% versus the 1%. That this is something that could not only restructure the system, but bring economic equality into it and enliven and enrich our communities by redirecting private profit and interest and fees that funnel into the pockets of big bankers back into the community to be able to fund education programs and infrastructure and roads and medical facilities. So the education comes up with both directing it towards the general populace as well as policymakers, because when you do sit down with these legislative directors, staffers, city council, they have these are bureaucratic guys, and they need their constituents to help educate and inspire them. And so that's what we have been doing, is bringing in literature, writing literature, so that they can see the scope and the vision of what could happen in the city of Los Angeles if we were to have a municipal bank. The city of Los Angeles spends $100 million in interest and fees, and that goes to the pockets, to line the pockets of big bankers. So re-envision where that $100 million could go. I mean, re-envision, we're currently in the red in Los Angeles. That $100 million could go a long way into restructuring our society here, to be able to create new schools and parks, etc. So it's about giving them the idealism and the inspiration and creating a movement to support that. So we've been, in City Hall, we've been pretty much every week for the last nearly 3 months. It's consistent public pressure that has really helped get this divestment motion on the table. It has now been introduced into City Council, and we're hoping that's going to get voted soon. So, it's not only having public pressure, it's coordinated public pressure along with dialogue with the policymakers who ultimately control these levers of powers. So, educate, organize, mobilize, and inspire.
We're going to get part of this, but before we do that, I just would like to say to you that we do have to clean up here.
We can have the Q&A with all of the original panelists jump on here for about 10 minutes, and then we got to clean up.
Yeah, if we can have some of the panelists that stood here and want to come up here in case there's any questions and answers, as they make their way over here. I like to say that again, we are at phase 1 on this campaign, and our campaign right now is all about educating the public. We're going to be doing that for the next few months. Right now, we have people interested in holding events like this over in Oakland, San Francisco, Northern California, Santa Cruz area, San Diego, the Inland Empire. So this is good news. People are starting to talk about it. And you're going to start seeing this more in social media. And you're going to start seeing people start talking about it even more, because we're going to be very aggressive in this. And we're going to make it happen.
Okay. There's a chair over here. So do you have any questions? First question? Yes. Right here. Go ahead. Yes.
Please state, if you could, I'll get the names up there, but please, we only have 10 minutes, so make your question very short. Thank you.
Okay, I'll make it very short. With Divest LA, to me, that was always linked with the pipeline. What I think might be a good idea is how you message this as a community good as opposed to an anti-establishment. What are your thoughts on, I guess, achieving that goal?
Who would you like to answer that question? Can one person take that answer, please?
So the question is, what's the primary message here? Is it anti-establishment, or do you promote the positive? And it's a tough one. You know, I've been doing public banking since 2010 with Ellen, and we go back and forth on it. There's no one answer to that. A number of us have started the Divest and Build Coalition, choosing Divest and Build because it is both. You know, we're divesting from unethical and wrong investments and building a new economy. So that's my answer.
Okay, we have another question here.
Just a quick question. Chartering this public bank is basically just a giant pile of paperwork, like a corporation. How ready, plug and play kind of is this legislation? I mean, is it, obviously each city or municipality or state or whatever is going to have to fine tune it, but I mean, is it kind of taking what already exists in North Dakota and kind of like changing, adapting it to California? Or?
That's the purpose of the Public Banking Initiative of California. We formed a nonprofit, and we're working with some of the people from the Milton Institute, and the Manette law firm has provided pro bono service to us, and people like Mike Otto, Ellen Brown, and hopefully some of these panelists would be on our working group, and the objective would be to conduct studies to determine the actually best path to go about developing that charter, what the governance would look like, how it would take deposits, how it would work with municipalities, other public agencies. All of these questions, we're going to work with some experts to come up with the best answer so that when we're ready to present it to the legislature and the governor for signature, we have a plan that will work and we'll move forward with it. Thank you.
And Ellen has another answer to that?
I'll just add that we have lots of models already, so, and we've done lots of feasibility studies, so it's not going to be that hard. I mean, we're pretty much ready to go, I would say.
Okay, we have another question.
Hello, my question would be, what do you see as the next steps when it talks about individual roles, collective roles, also here locally and even nationally connecting to groups? What's the next actual step beyond advocacy, education, and activism?
I've heard from interested legislators, they want to see a business plan. And, you know, basically they want to see the numbers. What's it going to cost us? How do we avoid risk? All those practical things. So I mean, I know what I think, but we need attorneys to say we can do it. We need legislators. We need all those official people that make it look like we need to cover their backsides.
Talking to some of the legislators, some of the state leaders, they have privately they are very interested in this. They want to hear more. They want to see this start taking legs, and I think this has to do a lot with the education of the public. Public start asking a lot of questions to them. You know, once they know that there's interest from the public, now they take it to a different level, because now it's in every conversation they're having with all the different issues that are approaching them. Teachers are talking education connected to public bank, you know, homeowners are talking to them about public bank, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Can I just quickly add, we're going to push for a motion for a municipal public bank for Los Angeles LA City Council to create possibly a blue ribbon panel that gives seats to communities of color, indigenous, that also would represent indigenous communities. So hopefully that's something that we're working on right now to get pushed through, and that will help, you know, roll out give us a better understanding as far as the cost and timeline of what that would look like in the city of Los Angeles.
Okay, we have another question.
Hi. A lot of the people on the panel have talked about and referred to North Dakota as like the shining example of a private bank model. They're talking about like I think 1960. That's how long it's been going since. Is there any modern example of an attempt to start a public bank or a public bank that's worked or hasn't worked? Why it didn't work out, why it failed, or is there any other example that you guys can refer to?
Well, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, let me just say, so Bank of North Dakota changed its business model, or I should say expanded its business model in the 80s when it started doing commercial loans and other types of investments. It pioneered student loans in the late 60s. And so it started adapting to the times. And so it's unfair to say that what it was as created in 1919 extended through today. It really has changed in the last 20 to 30 years. And it's also true that there are plenty of other examples, particularly in South America, of modern day public banks that are very much focused. The Chilean public bank, Chile of all countries, is very much focused on banking and financial literacy and family banking. So they want to reinforce the family unit, the values of the family unit, as well as provide education to those folks. And so it comes in different flavors in different countries. In Germany is very different. It supports its manufacturing sector quite strongly. But there are plenty of examples out there.
What about the United States?
Not in the United States.
Might I add?
Well, there is a public bank in California. It's known as the iBank, which is a quasi-public bank, but it's limited in its scope of what it can do. It simply is an infrastructure bank, and it issues state bonds in order to construct buildings, that type of thing. They don't take deposits, and they don't provide the type of services that we all would like to see.
I would add one problem that something that might come up.
Can you get closer to the mic?
Oh, sorry. When you start talking about a Bank of LA, we did have a Bank of LA in the 1970s, and it failed. But it was a revolving fund. It was not a depository bank. It didn't leverage their deposits, and it was basically set up to fail because its purpose was to fund businesses in the inner city that couldn't otherwise get loans. So it was basically, the purpose was to fund bad loans, and of course they ultimately lost the money.
Yeah, any bank that's set up to be a lender of last resort is going to fail. So it fails.
At this point, to answer that a little bit too, is that we cannot continue with a system that continues to leave us behind. And that's the bottom line. We have to grow with the times. That, we have seen how they have enriched themselves, filled their pockets. So people are willing to take look at all their avenues, and we need to really explore this public banking to the fullest, and not just half-assed, but just do it all the way.
So we know that the banking institutions are at the heart of modern class warfare, which it affects everybody. What is the most effective rhetoric you've found to reach people with differing opinions, differing political viewpoints, like we talked about in Virginia?
Well, I think Republicans as a people are not rich bakers. I mean, they are down in the banks just like Democrats are. I mean, all the people, they're coming at it from a different point of view. These are farmers who, they're more into sovereignty, and they don't like big government, etc. But we're not talking about big government. We're talking about we, the people, owning things. So it does have definitely a broad appeal across all classes, I think, or all. Yes.
I'd like to add a point to that, because I think it's a good point. Consider the fact that when a municipality or any public entity needs to pay back a loan, all the money that gets siphoned off into Wall Street, as Ellen mentioned, oftentimes up to the amount originally borrowed. if we have a public bank, that would go back into state coffers. Arguably, if you're going to speak to the audience of the right-wing mind and values, a good thing to point out would be, well, that would decrease our tax burden potentially. And it's another source of revenue that doesn't come straight from your pockets. That's another point to think of.
A question for Owen and Ray. How can our movement for public banking intersect with credit unions, whether it's in terms of maybe initiating by starting a credit union or leveraging, like Los Angeles has the Los Angeles Federal Credit Union, which is affiliated with the city of Los Angeles. How can we potentially either start with that model as part of building the public bank, or vice versa? How can the public bank connect with credit unions?
The bank is, if it's on the Bank of North Dakota model, it's a banker's bank, so it would help credit unions in the same way that it helps all sorts of local community banks. And probably Mark has more.
Well, I would add one thing to that. If a public bank is more like a wholesale bank, what we would create is something that the experts are still working on, and a lot of that work has been done, as Ellen stated, but community banks and credit unions are in a special category. The big banks are too big to fail, but they say the small banks are too small to save. But we think that they can be saved because they provide a valuable community service. For one, we need a place where people can deposit money and receive some interest that helps them to feel that they can save without just sticking cash away. And secondly, a place that is more personal, that looks at the person as an individual, not just a computer number, and can help them, whether it be a student loan or a mortgage or small business funding or some other need. So with those needs, we think that there's going to be a large constituency, and we can think of how we could work with municipalities, counties, and other public agencies that could affiliate and be a part of that whole system.
Yes, this is going to conclude this forum. Maybe we have a last word for each one of you really quickly, because we have to clean up and we have to get out of here. So we appreciate any hands anybody can give us in cleaning up. We are extending our time, but if anybody want to give some closing comments, make it brief, please.
Actually, we have it's 3:50, and if we have to close at 4, then we have literally 10 minutes. And if we have to close at 4, so I'm just letting you know. If you want to do that.
Yeah, we need to do it fast.
I have one closing comment that I think is kind of important. A lot of us in the stage today have spoken around the topic of revolution and like what revolution means to each of us. And I think that maybe one thing that we can agree on when it comes to revolution and what it means is justice. And we have to ask ourselves if these banks are working for the justice of the people and the justice of our society, or if they are working against justice. In this case, I think we have to admit that they are. When we talk about justice, we have to admit that some communities are disproportionately affected by these policies. So when we talk about justice in Los Angeles, we recognize that we are on stolen Tonga land. When we talk about justice, we recognize that these policies are disproportionately affecting communities of color, single mothers, and people who have been subjugated to economic oppression for generation after generation. It's time to end that.
Now, thank you to the panelists and activists for being with us. No, I'm sorry, we're going to have to shut down, but I just want to give you all a round of applause. Let's